Welcome to Leadership in the Line of Fire with your host, Brad Hauck. Join Brad as he dives into the heat of leadership challenges, where the flames of business uncertainty meet the hard-earned lessons of firefighting. Embrace change, master agility, and become the trusted leader guiding your team through the smoke. Get ready to ignite your leadership journey.
Some leadership mistakes are obvious. They get talked about in debriefs, performance reviews, and team meetings, but the most dangerous ones are the blind spots that you don't even realize you've got. They shape your decisions, they affect your team, and they limit the effectiveness of you long before you actually notice the damage. In this episode, I'm looking at the 7 leadership blind spots that catch out even good leaders. If you're willing to take an honest look at how you lead, you might discover some of the biggest things holding back your team isn't a lack of skill. It could be something that you've never actually seen. By the way, if you want to go deeper into my leadership lessons, grab a copy of my book, Run Towards the Flames, at Amazon.com. It's packed with stories and strategies from over 20 years of firefighting in the Australian bush and leading a very successful marketing business. So what are some of the blind spots that we don't see about ourselves? The first one is you're solving every problem yourself. Because you're dealing with every single problem that happens, you actually become the bottleneck, because the more problems that happen, the more people have to wait for you to deal with them. This is a huge mistake that many leaders make, and that's why it's important to have a leadership team. You need to be able to delegate problems and specific duties to other people. You can't handle them all yourself, depending on the size of your team. It's one of the reasons why we have span of control in the fire service. We have the 1:5 to 7 control. Once you get above that, you can't handle all the problems that are coming through. The other thing is, when you have a small team, assigning a problem to someone in the team also teaches them leadership and problem-solving skills. So you shouldn't have to solve everything yourself. As I've always heard and always said, you need to bring solutions to me, not problems. In other words, if you've got a problem, think about some possible solutions before you come. Number one, it does make my job easier. Number two, you're looking at the problem, so you're going to see the solutions more easily than I am. Even though they may not be right, they're a great place to start. And it may be that your solution is the right one, or one of your solutions is the right choice. So as a leader, we can't be solving every problem ourselves, okay? You can't have your team waiting for you to think about every decision that needs to be made. Yes, you should be a decision maker, but your team shouldn't be dependent on you to make every single decision. So look at building a leadership team, or if you're working with a small team, delegate some of those problems to other people to solve, to come back to you with a solution. Often you're busy doing one thing and they're standing around doing nothing. So they can do that and successfully come up with the right answer. Number two, you think you're communicating clearly with people. This is one of the biggest problems that I have. I feel like that I've said enough and people don't ask questions, but I haven't been clear. One of the key things I've always wanted to teach my team, and so far it seems to be working, is that to get them to question things when they don't understand. Why? Because when I put it my way, it may not be clear to someone else who thinks differently to me. Okay? Just because you said it doesn't mean that people understood it. I had a perfect example the other night where we were going to do a burn. The person in charge of the burn described what we were going to do, but it was a little confusing. So someone put up their hand and said, "Oh, look, I'm not quite sure about that. Could you explain this part?" And they went back and explained it again in a different way, and that worked. Everybody understood clearly what we were going to do, and ahead we went. Don't have a problem with asking people to explain the plan back to you. So one of the things I've seen used many times is that I will explain something, and I certainly did this as a teacher. I'll explain something, and then I'll get someone in the classroom or one of my team to explain it back to me. So this is what I want to do. Okay, Steve, can you just reiterate that back to me, and so that I understand that you've got what I need you to do. And so you get people to speak it back. And when they speak it back, number one, they'll never say it in the exact same words as you. Number two, they'll put it in words that someone else might understand better. And thirdly, they'll also show you that you have made it clear. And if you haven't, you can fix up any problems. Remember that clarity is more important than volume. Just shouting instructions at people doesn't bring better communication. Just shouting at people doesn't bring better communication. You need to be clear in your words and make sure that everybody understands. Number 3, you mistake activity for leadership. Being busy doesn't mean you're leading. Okay, it just means you've got work to do. When you're leading, you've got specific tasks you need to do to keep your team moving. Okay, the stuff you do yourself, meetings, emails, and all those constant interruptions that you have, they're not progress as a leader. They're just the busy work that has to be done. Sometimes your best leadership happens when you stop and think. We get very busy with our jobs as leaders, and it becomes overwhelming. And in fact, just recently I've had 2 weeks away. That's one of the reasons this podcast episode has had a break. It's the first time in many years where I've actually taken a holiday and not thought about anything to do with leadership, as in volunteering or in running my business. And it's amazing how quiet my mind is all of a sudden. I can think clearly again. I can focus. And so make sure you put aside time to actually think and stop and rest, all those sorts of things, because just being busy all the time doesn't mean you're going to be an effective leader. All it leads to is burnout, and that's not a great place to be. I've been there a few times, and I would not tell anybody to get that way. I would encourage you to take time out. And I know it's hard because turning off is extremely difficult with my mind. And I must say the last couple of weeks off has been a real break for me that I haven't had in so long I can't remember. So don't mistake activity for leadership. Number 4, you avoid difficult conversations. Leaders often have a blind spot when it comes to conversations. They don't want to have the difficult conversations, so they avoid them. It's a real issue. Small problems can become large cultural problems if you let them become that way. Okay? Little issues grow. And if you don't deal with them, they can explode on you. And I'm sure you, just like I, have had this happen. You can't help it. Sometimes you're not avoiding the small issues. Sometimes you're letting someone else deal with them, or sometimes you don't even know about them. And then suddenly it builds up. And there's often things that are happening that you're not seeing, other people are seeing, but instead of them dealing with it, they let it go, but complain to you that you're not dealing with it, which is really annoying. So don't avoid difficult conversations. Every conversation you delay becomes harder. If something's an issue, deal with it straight away. Then you can move on quickly, and so can the other person or the other people involved in the issue. If you leave it a couple of weeks, number 1, it can grow. Number 2, people forget about it, and then they don't understand what you're talking about in the first place, and then they repeat it. And number 3, you never get round to doing it because it just gets washed away with 1,000 other things that go on every day in your leadership life. Your respect will be growing when you deal with problems early. You need to handle them as quick as possible. Now, I know that's not always possible, but it's best that you do. And it's really hard being a leader when so many other things are going on to remember to deal with problems. I know the way my brain works, I go to bed at night and I wake up the next morning, it's a fresh day and my brain is nice and clear and I'm ready to go again. I put the world that happened yesterday behind me. That's my nature. I do that. I start again. Everybody gets a fresh start the next day. But the problem is if I don't deal with it at night, then often I'll have forgotten about it the next day because of the way I see the world. I don't know what it's like for you. Everybody's different. But remember, deal with problems early. Number 5, you're rewarding the wrong behavior. People repeat what gets recognized. So in other words, if someone does something wrong and you allow it to happen and don't say anything about it when you should have, it will get repeated. It's pretty simple because number 1, they might not realize it's wrong, or number 2, they don't care. That's their natural behavior and it may not be acceptable in the workplace. So remember that you've got to kind of deal with those issues, certainly wrong behavior, as quickly as possible. If only the heroes in your team get praised, you'll lose your teamwork. Remember, it is a team. That's the whole point of being a leader. You're not leading one person and helping them become great. You're leading a team. You want the team to become great, and you're part of that team. When they succeed, you succeed. It's we succeed. So don't forget, just because you're the leader doesn't mean you're not part of the team. It's really important. When you praise the team, you are praising yourself at the same time. You shouldn't be looking for extra praise. And if the team does something wrong, then it needs to be dealt with. And when you have someone in your team who's playing up, who's got a smart mouth or doing stupid things, if you don't deal with it, it hurts the whole team. So make sure that you take time to look at that wrong behavior and deal with it. But also remember that because you're part of a team, celebrate preparation, reliability, and helping others. When you reward those behaviors, the people who have wrong behaviors will see what gets rewarded. And more often than not, they'll fall into line and they'll follow the same behaviors as everybody else on the team. Number 6, you assume everybody thinks like you. That's my problem. I tend to think people think like me, and I know that they don't. But different personalities need different types of leadership. And I've talked about this in past episodes. I had to learn very quickly that most people aren't like me. In fact, I'm very unusual, and that's just the way I am. Now, everybody's different, I know that, but I'm just a little bit more different than most. So learning how other people think, what they want to do, how they want to do it, was very important for me as a leader. And I'm not going to always get it right, and I certainly don't, but I do my best. Now, the big thing is they also need to learn that I am an individual too, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm not going to do it right every time. That's part of being a team. But they should be able to support you as a leader or me as a leader in that situation and recognize that I'm not perfect. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure put on you as a leader to be perfect, to be the one in charge, to make all the right decisions, but you're just human. You're just like everyone else. You're going to make mistakes. Build your team to support you. Now, there's going to come times when you're going to have conflict in your team and they're not going to support you. That's fine. That's to be expected. Sooner or later, everybody clashes. What's really important is that when you understand that they don't think like you and you don't think like them, that you can move on from that and agree to disagree. This is really important. I'm not going to always work to agree with everyone because I don't. You need to be able to agree to disagree. Okay? Volunteers, employees, experienced staff, and new recruits all need something different from a leadership perspective. One style will not fit everybody in your team. So you're going to be like a chameleon. You're going to be changing a little bit, but you must keep it the way you are. Deal with them in the way that they need to be dealt with, but be yourself. And over time, people get to know you and they respect you for that. As I said, they're not always going to agree with you, but that's fine. It's not meant to be that way. Life is never about agreeing on everything. Number 7, the last blind spot. You've stopped learning because you're experienced. This is a huge one. I see this a lot in the fire service where we go through all our basic training and then we go out into the field and we do fight fires and do all those sorts of things. And over years, you build up experience until suddenly you turn around and you've been there 20 years. And that's a lot of experience. But it doesn't mean you should stop learning. There's always new stuff to learn. One of the biggest mistakes I see is where leaders think they know everything and they stop learning, and yet the world keeps turning around them. For example, in business, suddenly we've got AI come out of nowhere. Before that, it was something else. Well, the internet, there's always something new happening in the world that you need to learn. Just because you've done something for 20 years or 10 years doesn't mean you should stop learning. You should be looking for the opportunities to learn. Experience can become a strength or a trap. I've seen plenty of people who have lots of experience, but because they've stopped learning, they become lackadaisical and lazy, and they just don't fit in anymore because the new generation coming through bring new ideas. So learning from new people, working with new people, evolving yourself to bring new skills and techniques in is really important as a leader. The world changes faster than your experience alone can keep up with. So don't give up. Watch some videos, listen to some podcasts, like this one, for example. Read some books. Look at what's going on. Learn from someone younger than yourself. If they're talking about something new, go over and get involved in the conversation. Maybe it's a huge thing that will help your business or your life. You never know where things are going to go. Great leaders always stay curious. Great leaders are always learning. We can never stop. And I know that you know this, but keep learning and learn about different things too. Don't always get caught in your lane, your niche. Go outside and read a book about something entirely different. For example, I'm in digital marketing. And I know a lot about that. I've been doing it since 1996. In fact, I started in 1993. So that's a long time in one industry. So I have a great deal of knowledge. But sometimes I'll go and get a book from the library on gemstones or a book on breeding dogs or whatever it happens to be, just some random topic for something different. I like to open myself up to entirely new topics. It's good for your brain. It opens new neuron pathways and it makes you think differently. So leadership isn't always about becoming perfect. It's about seeing yourself more clearly. Every blind spot you uncover gives you a chance to make better decisions, build more trust, and become the kind of leader people genuinely want to follow. So here's your challenge. Which of these 7 blind spots felt a little bit too familiar? Don't ignore it. Pick one, ask someone you trust for honest feedback, and start working on it this week. The leaders who keep improving are the ones willing to see what they couldn't see before. If today's episode hit home, take 60 seconds to share it with a friend you trust. These conversations matter. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the next podcast episode. I've got more real-world leadership tips coming your way. If you want to go deeper into this Fireground leadership lessons, grab a copy of my book, Run Towards the Flames, from Amazon.com. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe, and run towards the flames.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership in the Line of Fire. If today's episode sparked some insights, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your support fuels this journey. Join us next time as we continue to explore leadership lessons from the fire line. Until then, keep leading with courage and agility.